The Toronto Raptors lose to the Portland Trailblazers 128 to 118. The comeback game for Delano Banton, a free agent this offseason. That was a huge part of the Raptors' plans, but then suddenly wasn't. He ends up going to the Boston Celtics, ends up getting away from the Boston Celtics and finds himself in Portland. And he's had two really big back-to-back games, one against Houston and now against Toronto. Could this also be a bit of a revenge game for Gary Trent Jr.? The storylines that form when players play against their former teams. Well, both those guys were really big tonight, and I don't think it's even debatable who was better tonight. I think Banton was better tonight overall. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about this game. So this game started out in a very sad fashion. First of all, you're already undermanned. You're missing Bruce Brown. You're missing Jakob, you're missing Scottie Barnes. And now you go into this game and you find out that RJ Barrett's a late scratch. And you're like, where's the offense going to come from? And if you were guessing Gary Trent Jr. and Emmanuel Quickley, you were correct. And early on, that process did not look good. I think Emmanuel Quickley really, really struggled. He had a ton of turnovers, 6 turnovers tonight, and Kelly Olynyk not too far behind with 5, including one very crucial one late in the game. Gary Trent Jr., whole storyline about, teams that he scored 20 against or something like that. And yeah, Portland's apparently the team that he hadn't. So boom, he gets his 20. He gets 23 points on 26 shots. A really rough night for Ochai Agbaji if you were, hoping that this meant, hey, no RJ Barrett. Ochai and Grady Dick are going to go off. Well, they had 15 points combined in a ton of minutes. And I think Ochai's game was just yikes, like really, really bad. Grady, on the other hand, I think he was fine. He just had a tough shooting night. He was a little quiet. Maybe you want more than 10 attempts on 39 shots. Sorry, in 39 minutes. And maybe you don't necessarily want to see him get blocked by Matisse Thybulle late on a jumper. But I like some of his playmaking, his process, his thinking out the game, some of his secondary creation stuff. Yeah, it's not perfect right now, but there's signs every single game of something new, something he's doing that's encouraging. In terms of Emmanuel Quickley, tough start, but great finish, right? Like he started to really, really draw doubles and make reads out of it. There was the one bang to where Kelly Olynyk drives baseline, passes to Emmanuel Quickley. Emmanuel Quickley passes to Chris Boucher, and then Boucher gets fouled. Chris Boucher was a huge part of what went right for the Toronto Raptors tonight. And it's even in those strangely successful moments that you see how many different ways Emmanuel Quickley can improve as well, right? He bounce passes to Chris. Chris gets fouled, right? Now you're banking on the referees to, I guess, bail you out of that situation, but you didn't need to bounce that basketball. You didn't. And I think that's something that, as an evolving playmaker, Emmanuel Quickley is going to learn that, boom, he had a lob that he could have thrown there. Boucher is a lob target. He could have thrown a lob. But in that moment, he gets a low pass from Kelly. He throws a low pass to Chris. Chris has to gather. Chris goes up. Chris gets fouled. Chris makes the free throws, which is a good thing. Chris Boucher got to the line 6 times, which was second only to Emmanuel Quickley. Emmanuel Quickley got to the basket pretty relentlessly. He finishes with 29 points. Chris Boucher goes for 16 and 8 off the bench. Speaking of big box score performances off the bench, Jalen McDaniels, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, 4 points on 2 for 3 shooting. And I'm still crying, get him off my team. I didn't like his game at all. I don't think I've liked his game since preseason. I think he's been a really big train wreck, and it was kind of hard to look at him play because I'm like, man, he's older than Delano Banton. He's worse than a Delano Banton. He's kind of playing the same position as Delano Banton. He has a lot of the same theoretical upside and advantages as Delano Banton. But one guy's from Rexdale and the other guy's Jalen McDaniels. I realized that allegedly there are reasons outside of basketball that push Delano Banton outside of Toronto. And I'm not going to be one of those people that's going to sit here and be like, oh my God, we lost on something great. But when you're giving up first round picks for Ochai Agbaji, and when you're giving out, biannual exceptions for Jalen McDaniels, and when you're giving out mid-level exceptions for like Dennis Schroeder, like I think you have to acknowledge that Delano Banton has about as much upside as those guys, right? Like I'm not crazy. Like, and if he was willing to come back on a little more than the minimum, I think maybe that's something the Raptors should have explored. 45 bucks, right? Eggman saying number 45. Sure. In terms of the Portland Trailblazers, they were not healthy. So before you start counting your, oh my God, we didn't have Scotty, we didn't have RJ, we didn't have this guy, we didn't have that guy. They were missing their three best players as well. I mean, depending on how you slice it between Anthony Simons and Shaedon Sharpe, you could make a really strong case that Jerami Grant and Malcolm Brogdan are the two best players. You can make another solid case that maybe they're missing their four best players. I'm not a really huge Anthony Simons fan, as you can probably tell if you follow this channel for a while. But they were missing Robert Williams. They were missing they were missing Shaedon Sharpe, explosive Shaedon Sharpe. They were missing, obviously, Malcolm Brogdan, who would have cremated this team. Honestly, if either Jerami Grant or Brogdan were playing in this game would have been so much worse than it really was. Even if RJ had played, I really do believe that, like, when it comes down to who you're missing versus who they're missing, yeah, I think Jakob would have made a really big difference in terms of guarding DeAndre Ayton. Tonight, he really did have a dominating game. I can't stand DeAndre Ayton either, so you can't tell that. Tamani Kamara is one player on the Portland Trailblazers that I really like, and nice to see him, have a big game, kind of got chippy at the end. Scoot Henderson, nice to see him have a pretty positive performance. Thought he guarded up really well. Rayon Rupert, who I infamously put 13th on my draft board above Grady Dick, just to be a little different, just to be a little weird and a little too weird. He got 13 minutes and scored 0 points, 3 assists, 3 rebounds, nonetheless. And yeah, Matisse Thybulle, like the stock has really like soured on him. And for a guy who defends the way he does, is like a disruptive defender who can actually hit threes, I'm always a little bit surprised. Like, why did his stock fall the way that it did? Like, why are people just out on him? Like, should the Raptors take a look at him? Like, I feel like maybe, yeah. Like, I mean, you do a hell of a lot worse than Matisse Thybulle, I'll tell you that. Yeah, overall, like, I just think that the Raptors did not have enough shot making tonight. Obviously, with RJ Barrett out, you needed something else, and it wasn't really coming from anywhere. I mean, seriously. I think you get a look at some of the creative limitations of some of the key guys on your roster, right? You see the gaps, you see where these holes are. If tonight Emmanuel Quickley was prime John Morant, maybe you win this game, but he's not there yet, right? If Ochai Agbaji, was OG Anunoby, maybe you win this game, right? Again, there's just not enough there right now with Ochai, and I remain hopeful and optimistic, but he was kind of tossed away by a team that is accumulating young assets for a reason, because there are a lot of question marks, and I think he's going to have to answer them. Playing 22 minutes and grabbing 1 rebound with his athleticism is pretty inexcusable. And again, like, defensively, you need something from him every single night that is just like, you got to be locked out or you're not going to play. Like, you don't have enough. And when this team gets healthy next year, and when there's I think the window of opportunity for Ochai right now, and he talks about, coming to Toronto and this being a huge opportunity for him, I think he should be very, very careful about how quickly opportunities can go away, right? Because when you consider it, the Raptors will have 2 potentially young, very young players coming in next year. Could be 3. Could be 3, right? I mean, the Raptors are in striking distance to potentially, get their pick back from Memphis. Not saying it's going to happen. Sorry, to get their 6th spot back from Memphis and potentially keep their pick from San Antonio. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying like we could end up having 3 young players coming into this team next year. Well, now, if you're Ochai Agbaji, you're the 24-year-old and you're looking over your shoulder and there's a more talented, potentially higher, profile 20-year-old who's gunning for your spot. Like, you don't know, right? That's one way of looking at it. There's also another way of looking at it, which is if the Raptors are competitive next year, chances are they're going to shore up some of their guard depth. And yeah, with RJ and Scotty and Grady, when they're healthy, like those 3 guys are eating up like at least 100 minutes at the guard and wing position. So if you don't show like immediate progress right now as a soon to be 24-year-old third-year player, like you might be a minimum contract guy on your next deal. And that's really where this is going for Ochai if he does not pick his shit up right now. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just saying we've seen about, I don't know, what is it, like almost 8 to 10 games of Ochai Agbaji. What is it right now? Ochai Agbaji has played like he's not been great. And there's just no way to slice it. He has not been great. Let me just pull this up here. So, I mean, the inconsistency has plagued him, right? So here we are. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We're 12 games into his Raptor career, right? He's at 8 points, 2 points, 3 points, 2 points, 14 points, 13 points, 0 points, 2 points, 13 points, 3 points, 3 points, 7 points. Granted, points are not everything, right? He has shot 33%, 12%, 100%, 50%, 80%, 83%, 57%, 0%. But over the last 5 games, he's been 33%, 30%, 25%, 16%, and 28%. This is so bad. It's so bad. Like, it's abysmal. Like, he's missing everything. Like, over this stretch, he is averaging in March 5 points. 5 points on 27% shooting, 15% from 3. You're asking him to go up. Like, fair enough. The 100% game, he had 1 attempt. That is true. And he played 5 minutes. Eggman saying Jazz finessed the Raptors. I wouldn't be so sure they finessed the Raptors. I'm just saying he needs to step it up. He has a lot of athletic potential. I understand why you would take a swing on him. He's obviously a very good guy. And, yeah, but here's the thing. If Danny Ainge and Masai Ujiri both give up on you, your next contract will be probably not an NBA contract, or it will be a minimum contract with like a camp deal. Like, I'm being straight up. The leeway for an older lottery pick, even, a fringe lottery pick, it's really disingenuous to call him a lottery pick, even though he went 14th overall. I mean, he's been shifted a few times now, right? He got traded first to Utah. Now he's traded to Toronto, right, from Cleveland. I think there's a very, very good case to be made that this summer is very make or break for him. I don't know if he's going to be playing in the Raptors Summer League. He should. He absolutely should. And, Eggman here posting the Chinese flag, shit, maybe, And weirdly enough, he has the complete makings of a future EuroLeague MVP. He has who he reminds me of a little bit? Anthony Parker. For Bradley, like Anthony Parker. He went over Maccabi Tel Aviv, had a brilliant career there. He was playing for the Philadelphia 76ers. He was behind, I think Larry Hughes and Allen Iverson at the time, or Jerry Stackhouse and Allen Iverson. I think it was Jerry Stackhouse and Allen Iverson, and he just couldn't get minutes. He ends up going over to Europe. He ends up going to Israel, ends up playing really well for Maccabi Tel Aviv, wins EuroLeague MVP, comes back to the Raptors, has a brilliant, resurgence with the Raptors. Then he goes over to the Cavs. I think he was part of the worst Cavs team ever. And then he ends up, becoming a really big executive with, I believe, the Orlando Magic. So, go figure. I mean, it's an interesting career, but this is not like he would not be the first guy for this to happen. I obviously am not saying Ochai is not an NBA player. I am, however, saying that he is going to dry up his offers really quick if you're not fix this shit real fast. Yeah. Anything else? Let's look at the team stats for a sec, if y'all don't mind. Also, not that I like talking about sports betting, but guess who bet Blazers Spurs parlay and just sat there as watching the longest shot parlays actually pan out on a 9-1. That's insane. Yikes. If at some point today we have time to talk about something that I feel is like a very valuable lesson that I learned over the last few days, I hope we have a chance to talk about that. In terms of the team stats, look, man, the Blazers took more shots. They hit a slightly higher percentage of those shots. They were more efficient from three. They got to the line a little bit less, but they made almost as many free throws. They out-rebounded the Raptors. They killed them on the offensive glass. They were bigger than them, stronger than them, and more forceful than them, which is what puts into perspective Chris Boucher, and what he did. They out-assisted them. They out-stole them. They had fewer turnovers. Like, you had no business really winning this game. More points in the paint. Like, it was just, yeah. And I mean, the Raptors, this would have been a huge comeback. The Raptors were down 21 points in the second quarter, and they end up making a game of this very late, right? And a lot of that was in the back of Chris Boucher, and that's the final thing we'll talk about before we get to the two callers. What is Chris Boucher? I think he's a very good story. I think he's a really relentless effort guy, pursuit guy. And I think too often, like, we diminish that as, it's not a skill. Hustle is a skill. It's totally a skill. Offensive rebounding is a skill. And it's a transferable skill that a lot of great teams have guys like this. And this is why at the deadline, I was saying that Chris Boucher was such a valuable contributor, or potentially a valuable upgrade for, contender out there, because he's a guy who in 5 to 7 minutes in a spurt can change the complexion of a game. He can get like a couple offensive rebounds. He can get like, a huge transition dunk, and he can just do stuff for you that just isn't very common for most backup bigs in the NBA. And he's a relentless pursuit guy. You know what you're getting from Chris Boucher every single night, in terms of effort and hustle and diving. Like, the Raptors are 23-40 going into this game, and Chris Boucher is like balls out, going crazy. And something that I appreciate as someone who kind of grew up, I don't know, poor, is how much I appreciate stuff more than the people that I'm around today. Like, I don't take stuff for granted. You know what I mean? Because I always typically compare it back to what I used to have, and I had so little. So it's like, wow, who am I to complain about, $20 an hour or something like that? I'm like, man, I used to work $5 an hour. So this is great. Sure, I'll do $20 an hour. It's something that I've had to adjust my mindset on, because I often underprice myself, and I realize that a lot of that comes from poverty. And it also means that I work really hard. Sometimes poverty teaches you to work really hard too, and the path that Chris Boucher came from with the Oregon Ducks and, his upbringing. And I don't know like how much you guys know about how Chris Boucher grew up, but there was a lot of tough stuff. And I think that a lot of that gives you that sort of feeling of, who am I to earn $10 million and not go out crazy? Who am I to earn whatever, $11 million? They pay me $11 million to play basketball. Who am I to not die for this loose ball or put my body on the line? See, that mentality, I wish more people had it, really, because, you're watching guys go through the motions, and they're just taking for granted that they're making $4, $5, $6 million playing basketball, or even sometimes 30, $40 million playing basketball in the case of certain, debutantes and, wannabe stars and, guys who get paid and just kind of like, they just mail it in. They don't care. They really don't care. And Chris Boucher does care. The problem with Chris Boucher is largely he's just disorganized. I feel like his thoughts are disorganized on the basketball court. He often doesn't know where to be. If you really break the games down, you'll see how often he's screwing up a rotation or how often he's in the wrong place or he's just getting in people's way. And it's like at this point, he's 30 plus. And it's like, are you going to teach this guy how to play basketball? For real, right? Like there's instincts that he has that are great. And there's a pursuit and a motor he has, which is incredible. And he puts it all on the line. And he's got some skill for sure. And he's got some really interesting physical attributes with a 7'4" wingspan and 6'10", standing reach. And sorry, he's 6'10" and, he has a 7'3", 7'4" wingspan. And, there's certain things there that just really convert well to an 8 to 10 minute per game change of pace big off the bench. The problem is, for the Raptors, as they have done many, many times, is you do have a valuable asset. He's just massively overpriced, which of course depletes his trade value as well. If Chris Boucher was making $4 or $5 million, which is probably in line with what he should be making and should have been making the last few years, if that's what he was making, he would have been a pretty valuable trade piece this trade deadline. Unfortunately, he makes $11 million. It's really hard to send $11 to $12 million back to match salary for him because he's just not that good. And that's just the reality of the situation. Don't look at the per 36 minutes numbers. Don't look at the analytics on PER and bullshit and stuff like that. You have to watch the games and just realize that if you're trying to run a read and react motion offense in which guys are cutting and there's pieces moving all the time and you're moving further and further away from one guy dribbles the basketball like a crazy person and then, hoists up a shot and everyone attacks the offensive glass like we were last season. Like in a lot of ways, Chris Boucher fits like stars. Do you know what I mean? Like Chris Boucher would be great in Dallas. Chris Boucher would probably be great in not that the Detroit Pistons have a star, but like any offense that's stagnant in which one guy pounds the rock a lot and there isn't a lot of complexity to the offense, I feel like he could thrive there. So I feel like that's sort of where he should be, in my opinion. And someone's saying Chris the Clips. I don't know about that, but he wouldn't be bad there for sure. Yeah. A brief note. Give me 2 minutes to just get this out. So I was thinking very recently about this concept of relativity when it comes to appreciation. So I thought of a story, a parable that I thought I could share with this community. So you have a guy, let's call him Jeff, and Jeff has 2 kids, right? And he's really thankful to have 2 kids. And he thanks God every single day that he has 2 kids. And he tells his kids every single day that he loves them because Jeff remembers a time when he had no kids, when he and his wife were trying and they had no kids. And so he's very grateful that he has 2 kids because it's a big deal to him. And he never forgets it. And then you have Mike. And Mike also has 2 kids, but he cries about it every single day. He cries that he has 2 kids. He hates that he has 2 kids. He drinks. He can't even look at them. It's hard for him to look at these 2 kids because you see, Mike only remembers the time that he used to have 3 kids. He remembers that he used to have 3 kids, and one of them passed away due to leukemia, and now the 2 kids that are remaining are just a reminder that at one point he had 3. Whatever you measure your happiness by, maybe it's by the girl you're dating or the guy you're dating. Maybe it's by the kids you have or the family you started. Maybe it's by the car you drive or the house you own or how much Bitcoin you managed to invest in early on. However you measure your happiness, chances are, if you're like most people, you're probably looking at it as, what do I have now relative to what I used to have? That's how most people think. And I think that's also how I think sometimes, and so much of my happiness is derived from the fact that I'm always reminded that I come from dirt, that I came from nothing, and to me, everything is a blessing. Everything is an appreciation. I don't take any of this shit for granted. I'm like, I got lights on, I got food in my fridge, I'm good. You know what I mean? And that is perspective, and that is being grounded. It's maybe not the greatest thing ever, because sometimes it diminishes your capacity for improvement because you've just become complacent. But I do think that, the person who's happy that he has, I don't know, 20 Bitcoin, because look at how much Bitcoin is worth. That person is happy. But what if you're the person who has 20 Bitcoin who used to have 200 Bitcoin, but then you sold 90% of your Bitcoin when it was at like $100? You would be like borderline wanting to hurt yourself right now if that's you, because all you would think about is, oh, look what I used to have, look what I used to have, right? We have some sort of subconscious weirdness about needing to see numbers grow, right? We need to see these numbers grow. So I thought about it. So some of y'all have been following my ridiculous journey towards getting a new television from Best Buy, right? And something strange happened. So I used to have, I tallied it up late in a live where I talked about having like a 19-inch TV, and how small that was, and then moving up to whatever, and then eventually getting to the point where I have 60-inch TV in my room, in my living room, and now I'm at a point where I need an upgrade on that, to the point where I didn't want to get another 60-inch TV. Why did the TV need to get bigger? It's not like I'm looking at the TV that I have right now. It's freaking huge. 60 inches is a pretty big TV. And I'm just like, nah, the next one's got to be 70 or like 65. You know what I mean? And I think about it, and it's like, is that how we approach pretty much everything? Isn't it? I got this contract. Well, the next one's got to be up. Life doesn't work that way. Life actually works more in concentric circles. Sometimes you have to take losses. And I think that it's just a random sidebar that I just wanted to extend to anybody out there that, if you think about life in a linear sense, you drive yourself crazy, because it never works that way. And it's just never going to work that way. It never does. It's never, ever going to be that way. Similarly, you look at the development of young players, it never works that way. It never works in a straight line, does it? It never only goes one way. Sometimes you have a bump. For 2 months, you can't shoot, or for a month or two, you regress. And you need to take that regression with a grain of salt, and not only think to yourself how good the good times were, because the bad times lead to good times. And, there's something to grow and learn from. And again, life is so much better understood as a ball, as a circle, as a series of circles, than it is to be understood as like a straight line. And I think that so often in my life, I have been able to grow after a period of prolonged stagnation, and it never works the way you think it does. And so if I wanted to draw like a chart of like how I think my life has gone, a lot of people think I would draw something like this, where like, okay, homeless, government housing, boom, running a film festival, own your home, and, run a basketball podcast or whatever. Like, not that that's some, marker of huge success, but you get what I'm saying. Like, and it never worked that way. That's just not. What you're talking about applies to guys your age, not guys who have been there, done that. I think it applies to everybody. First of all, how old do you think I am? Number one. Number two, what does that mean? Been there, done that. Right? Like, I don't know. Like, are you like 50 and you're going to tell me that this doesn't apply to people who are 50? I think this absolutely applies to people who are 50. You're about 34. You would be incorrect. I mean, you're close, but you're incorrect. What does age have to do with this? I'm curious. Now I'm really curious. Anyways, so again, so saying, I think it's more like this. You're generalizing. Yeah, that's how these things work. Like pay your taxes, eat healthy. all generalized advice. Anyways, okay, let's bring on Lane. Lane, what up?
Yo, what's up, man?
Not too much. What's going on with you?
Nothing. That was actually a great story. I don't know how religious you are, but I'm extremely religious, and it just reminds me a lot of how like trust God. You know, like you go through valleys, you go through mountains, but through the end, like He will calm the oceans. He will rise you above the mountains. So I mean, like that. It just that's what I was thinking of the whole time. So it's a great message.
I think like that's what I'm learning like with Scotty as well, right? Like there's one way to look at this and just say, what a sucky thing. He needs these reps. There's another way to look at this, which is number one, he is now having to learn how to help his team without being able to help his team on the court.
Mhm.
And you hear stories about him hosting team dinners, and he's getting closer and closer with Emmanuel quickly. And I think that's really helping Emmanuel quickly as well. You're seeing him kind of like root on his team from the bench when a lot of people were saying like, look, his body language on the bench, blah, 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 blah. So I think like this could be a huge blessing in disguise for him. And it doesn't seem like when a guy, goes out with a season ending potentially injury and you lose your entire play-in odds and all that stuff, it doesn't seem like that's going to be a good thing. But we don't know, right? We don't know. And we also don't know if, I don't know, like there's such weird things that happen all the time in terms of like the chance of something, like how do we know that he hurt his hand? Let's say he doesn't hurt his hand. Let's say Emmanuel quickly doesn't, kick his foot up or whatever, at his hand, and he doesn't have to apologize or whatever. Let's say that doesn't happen, and then he played the next game and he was gonna like have an ACL tear.
Right.
We don't know that. We just really don't know that. He was barreling towards an injury. I'll tell you that though. The way he was moving, like how stiff some of his body language was, the body language, like, some movement patterns were, how much he was limping around and like constantly coming up gimpy and just playing these crazy minutes. It's like, dude, like, yeah, this could have been so much worse, and instead you get like a pretty soft off shooting hand injury, which hopefully will allow him to work on his other hand. And it's just like, it's fine.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I kind of like it. Not that he's hurt, obviously, but kind of that now we've picked a direction for the season, more or less, where this is like we're gonna either try to retain. I mean, I don't think they're trying to retain the pick necessarily, because if they were, then there's no point to play IQ. You know, it's just let's run tank squad out there and figure it out.
Mm.
But I think they're kind of at this point. It's like, okay, we know we're not going to make the plan, so whatever happens, happens. Let's just develop guys. But
You're starting Jalen McDaniels to start the overtime. I think it's pretty clear you're taking. Like, I
yeah,
mean, of all the players on this team that you could have started there, and
yeah.
honestly, I'm kind of curious, why did Jonte Porter not play in this game?
Yeah, that was a weird one. Especially since you were getting killed on the offensive glass, I thought you could have used more size because your two biggest guys in the starting lineup were Grady and Olynyk. And then your biggest guy off the bench was Boucher. So you pretty much had three guys that were over 6'8" playing in this game.
Jalen McDaniels is over 6'8".
Is okay. Well, he doesn't feel like it. Jalen McDaniels feels like he's 6'2". So you
Yeah,
had
10
three.
rebounds, man.
He did. He had a good night on the glass, but he just doesn't play within the flow of anything. Like
Also, Jordan Nwora is 6'8". So you
he
have
is,
Jalen McDaniels 6'9" and Jordan Nwora 6'8.5".
it's so weird because I feel the same way about Noir almost that I do about McDaniels. Is like you ever listen to a little kid's choir concert and there's always that one kid who's playing the wrong note. That's how I feel about Jordan McDaniels and Noira. It always feels like they're out of place. However, I think Noira has redeeming qualities
You
because
just
he's a
called him Jordan McDaniels. So you've
no.
merged these. You did, and it's hilarious because you've merged these two
Did I?
players into one useless player that makes $7 million. I hope one of them can work out for the Raptors. I certainly see like the size, skill, all that stuff. And it's weird because these are the two guys on the roster currently that are playing that kind of fit Vision 6'9",
Yeah, that
which is hilarious.
I think it's dead.
Um,
Don't you?
the Raptors need to abandon Vision 6'9". They need to go to Vision 6'10". Like an upgrade on Vision 6'9", but with all power forwards or something. I don't know. This 6'9" shit has not worked for the Raptors.
No, not at all. I mean, it did because you got Scotty.
OG,
You got,
Scotty,
you got Scotty.
Pascal, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think if we're going for Vision 6'9", we even look in Scotty's direction, or as hard as we did,
Mhm.
But because we were, I mean, you drafted number 4. I don't know if you already touched on it because I kind of got in here late. Have we
Sure.
talked about Ochai yet?
Yes, extensively.
Oh,
I,
okay.
I said
What
that
was?
he might not be in the NBA in a couple of years.
Oh, I'm very firm on my post trade reaction still. I there's 2 or 3 GMs in the league that like are never wrong, and Danny Ainge is one of them. And if Danny Ainge is willing to let go of a 24-year-old kid, something's something's got to be up.
Is he never wrong? I think he's been wrong.
He
He's human.
rarely wrong. He is rarely wrong on young prospects, and the fact that
Right.
he chose him, he chose trading him over like Taylor Horton Tucker or someone like that, really
Salaries are
shows me
totally different.
salaries are different, but they were both movable at the deadline. And to clear up the roster spot for Sensabaugh to get on and a few other guys to get some minutes, they chose Ochai.
In fairness, I don't even think they drafted Ochai to begin with. I think
They
he was
didn't.
more like a Cleveland pick, and then he was
Back.
tossed over, and maybe they just didn't. Maybe they weren't that high on him to begin with, which could have maybe hampered his. Look, I like him as a person.
Yeah, great
I
dude.
think that Masai knows him well enough that if there is something good that's supposed to come out of him, it will come out as a Raptor. But yeah, we looked at his stats in March. I think he's shooting like 15% from three and like
Yeah, it's like
27% from the field
yeah, I'm
and
like
like
5 points.
5 points.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been really bad. And on a night like tonight, you need like, I mean, consider where the league is going. You got guys like you got 12 guys sometimes on a roster, even bad rosters, that can put up 20 points in their sleep. I know that maybe shocks some people, but I think like hopefully, I mean, I was saying this earlier in the year that literally like there's like I think I said it last year. There's like over 150 to 200 guys who can put up 20 points per game if you gave them a chance.
Yeah.
You're seeing that with Delano Banton right now. He was a guy who couldn't get 5 minutes for the Raptors last year, and he's putting up like back to back these huge pieces for the Portland Trailblazers, who are obviously ravaged with injuries. But Banton's playing 41 minutes for them. You look
And
at a guy like, go ahead,
I'm sorry, he doesn't look like the same player. I just wanted to add that in.
Banton.
His handle's so much tighter. He looks like he's making decisions so much faster.
He
Like I'm
looks like the same
happy.
player. He's just playing. He's just playing against like bad teams, man. And he's like, I mean, like, okay, in fairness, you've got spacing around him. You've got screen setting. You've got some talented pieces that, granted, are not winning right now. But like, I think like I was like DeAndre Ayton, Anthony Simons. These are talented players. These are talented players who started a ton of games in the NBA. And with Banton, like the swing skills, so to speak, is his shooting. But like obviously, he's always had potential to get to the rim. Now I remember I'm gonna give this moron a shout out. There was a guy who's, I think he currently works for Raptors Republic or something like that. But I made a bet with him in the first 25 games of Banton's rookie season that he would outperform Jalen Suggs. And he did. That's how high I was on Delano Banton as a rookie, and that's how low I was on Jalen Suggs as a rookie. Like nothing has really changed in his game. Like his shot has gotten better. Kudos to 905. Kudos to the Raptors. Kudos to Delano Banton for getting better on that. Man, he's always been long. He's always been aggressive. He's always been like a really interesting attacker in the paint. He's always been a sort of shaky decision maker. I'm not really sure where he fits, but as he gets stronger and stronger, yeah, I could see him having like a successful career as a role player in the
Yeah.
NBA.
Yeah. Oh,
And
100%.
he's 23 years old, 23,
100%.
24 years old. He was a very interesting player at Nebraska, man. Really interesting player.
He transferred from where? I remember watching him before he transferred. I forget where he was playing though.
Mm-hmm.
And he went to Nebraska. But yeah, it's the biggest thing I picked up today because I didn't get to watch him last night. Because I was busy. I wanted to watch the Rockets game. I just couldn't. But I mean, his handle just looks so much tighter compared to where it was last Raptors, and I think that's the biggest difference for him because he's being able. I don't know. I'm not a basketball fundamental like guy. Like I don't teach that kind of stuff, but it seems like with his handle being tighter, his first step is a little bit quicker, and so are his passes. Even like he's like his decision making just looked fast today. Maybe today was an anomaly. Maybe this was a get back game because some guys have get back games.
Mhm.
But he just I don't know. Like I'm not calling the guy the next coming of Jesus Christ, but like he's probably played himself from Taiwan to like a ninth or 10th man on an NBA roster next year.
Yeah, I think he has like really intriguing potential, just because of his size skill ratio. And yeah, overall, like I think defensively he can kind of hold water. He's
Mhm.
disruptive enough, long enough, athletic enough, quick enough that yeah, he presents himself as a very interesting prospect under the age of 25 who might still have some. I don't know. If you told me one day Delano Banton played 10 minutes a game for an NBA champion, I would not I would not blink twice. So that is where I'm at with Banton right now. That's what I see. I'm not saying the Raptors lost out on, the next starter or something like that. I
Right.
think people are going a little bit too nuts with the numbers because
Agreed.
again, like he's doing it on high volume, high minutes. The same thing with Precious Achua. But that's the same thing I was saying about Precious Achua is I think Precious Achua could be a rotation player on a really, really good team. And it's like for a team that is like giving up first round picks. Granted, it's a little disingenuous to call the OKC pick a first round pick, but it is a first round pick in a really weak draft. The team that is giving up first round picks for a 32-year-old who figures to be the same level of contributor in Kelly Olynyk and a 23-year-old who figures to be the same level of upside contributor in Ochai Agbaji. It's like, who the hell are we to snub our noses at a 23 or 24-year-old rotation player? You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
So yeah, I think it's just it's I think you're seeing the consequences to some extent of Nick Nurse. Like sometimes for young players, like your development can be somewhat stagnated for a certain level of time, and then it can sort of start to pick up again. I think we're seeing a little bit of that
Yeah, for sure.
with
And
Banton.
I feel bad though because I don't want to put it all on Nurse necessarily because I think it was a product of what his bench was to the point where he just generalized like them all as the same, other than Boucher. Like I think Boucher was the only one that got extended leash because I think the rest of the bench was so bad that Band just kind of got unfairly grouped into the rest of them. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know if you'd agree with that necessarily, but that's kind of what I thought because there was moments where Banton did shine, but his leash was still as short as guys like Malachi.
Right. Quick
Cool.
question for you: are you watching me on screen? I just want to make sure I'm not freezing up. Am I?
No, you're good to me. Yeah, I got you put up on my Mac and my phone, so you're good on both.
Yeah, so Rank Scrub saying, Jesus, your shadow band so bad, freezing up so on my end tonight. I think that might be on your end, dude. Um, like that might be your internet because usually if I am freezing, I usually see it too. So that's why I'm like a little bit freaked out by that. But yeah. Anyways, man, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if I had three wishes from a genie, at
Okay.
least one of the three would be to give Chris Boucher a brain. Because I feel like if he had a brain with all the other intangibles he had, he'd be like a top 100 player in the NBA. But he doesn't have a brain, and that's really what holds him back at the end. But I mean, I respect the hell out of the guy. He's probably one of my top 10 favorite Raptors ever. Like lower, like 8, 9 ish, but like still, like the dude's a hell of a player. For what he was supposed to be.
Fair enough. He wasn't supposed to be anything. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair. I don't think it's fair to say he doesn't have a brain. He's
No,
just
no,
a
no.
little
But
he's a little bit slow at
yeah,
processing
yeah,
certain situations on the basketball court because I think that has a little bit at least to do with the fact that he was pretty late getting into like super organized basketball.
yep, yep. 100%, 100%. It reminds me of like, you ever watch The Wizard of Oz?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, the lion has a heart. Which one? I forget which one doesn't have a brain. I feel like that's Boucher, where he has everything but the missing piece, and it's like you give him the missing piece, like you give him like Malachi Flynn's brain. You
Yeah,
may,
but like here's the thing, like if you've listened to him talk, like
no, he knows
he
ball.
has a brain.
He knows ball. He's just
It's
slow on the
but
court.
yeah, so I think something that I've often been like quick to say is low IQ. And that bothers certain people, especially when you bring up the racial component of it. Sometimes when someone says, "Hey, you're a white guy calling a black player low IQ. This is tough. Find a different way to say it. And I've usually been very stubborn, and I'm saying I'm talking about basketball. But then when you say someone doesn't have a brain, I think like that veers dangerously close into where people say I have an issue with that statement. And as you were saying it, I'm hearing it, and I'm like, I think I have an issue with that statement too. So I don't want to call you out or anything. I'm just saying I think there is like a way to say that he's slower at processing certain basketball situations than to outright say he doesn't have a brain. Because clearly he's gotten to a point where in his career, in his professional field, where he may not be a top 100 player in the NBA, but he's paid like a top 150 player in the NBA. Do you know what I mean?
And that money was well earned at the time. He worked his.
I don't even think it was. That's the funny
Really?
thing. I mean, I don't even think he was worth, 33, 34 million, whatever the hell the Raptors paid him. But I'm just saying, like, I think we need to find a way as basketball commentators and people who speak of basketball. I think we need to find a way to talk about someone being slower to read and react to situations on the basketball court without outright calling into question their overall intelligence, because I think there is a difference between IQ. Like, for instance, a really good example. I tested gifted, math, science, writing, all that stuff. Great at it. Really smart. On the basketball court, I really struggled with processing things quickly. I had a lot of turnovers when I was younger, made a lot of stupid passes, often picked up my dribble too early. And if I could watch myself playing basketball in high school, I would often consider myself very low IQ, very high IQ person, very low IQ basketball player at times.
Yeah,
it took a while because partially it was because things were moving too fast for me. And I just didn't know the game well enough when I was 13, 14, 15 in order to process all of the things that were happening. And people were so big and so fast. And, as someone who's 5'10", 5'11", like people got so much bigger, so much faster when you leveled up. And these guys are just moving faster and faster, and you keep moving at the same pace. And it was moving too fast for me. So I say that, and I'm just trying to have some empathy for a guy who really, deserves a lot of respect, obviously. But yes, I don't think anyone would be wrong or out of pocket for saying that Chris Boucher makes a lot of mistakes on the basketball court. He does.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's all in like the context of what you're talking about too. Like, if we were to sit here and call him talk about him as a person, that's different than talking about him as like a basketball player per se.
Fair. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thanks a lot for calling, man. Appreciate it. Cheers. Bye. Okay. Final caller. Hello, John. What's going on, man?
How you doing, man?
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm actually doing really good because the Raptors did what they should have done tonight. I don't know how most people feel, but the right call was made because McDaniels starting over Grady. I don't know about you, but I've been lucky enough to watch the Raptors and not tank for the last 10 years, which has basically been most of my Raptors watching tenure. Like, I'm in my mid-20s, so
okay. So you weren't watching the Raptors when you were like 12.
So I'm 24. So I started watching basketball like in 08. But I'm 9. So
you saw the worst. You absolutely saw some of the worst.
No,
you saw Rudy Gay take 36 shots and then burn the box score.
Indiana, right?
37 shots. Yeah.
Was that Indiana?
I think it was.
Yeah, but I remember that. No, I've seen it all. Like, I feel pretty old, but I'm still pretty young. But I saw it all. I saw Andre Bargnani. I remember Jermaine O'Neal. I remember Sean Mary and Hito Turco. But I'm just saying, like, at that time, I was still young. So, like, I didn't really – I wasn't processing.
You're still young. You're 24 years old. Shut up.
But my point is, I haven't seen tanking. And, for some reason, I was thinking, like,
where were you during Tampa? Of course you saw tanking.
So, yeah, that's where I'm going.
The Tampa tank.
That's where I'm going. I was like, for some reason, my mind is completely shut off the end of that 2021 season because I think there were so many injuries. It was just like, okay.
And you checked out?
Yeah, there were so many injuries. No, I was still watching, but there were so many injuries. It was like, you don't have to tank because no one is playing. It was so clear. So, like, for me tonight, when I saw them start McDaniels, it was like I've never seen this before. I haven't seen this before.
You have witnessed the tank.
So I was gonna ask you, do you remember, like, was this how common was this like 12 years ago?
I
Or
don't know
was
about common.
was Colangelo, was he doing stuff like this?
No. Colangelo was not a big tanker either. It was always push for the playoffs. Before the play-in, there were the playoffs, and Colangelo pushed for it hard, man. The Raptors limped into the playoffs with Andrea Bargnani, Jermaine O'Neal, and Chris Bosh playing together, which was really interesting and did not work well against the Orlando Magic. Obviously, it was always, win above all costs. And look, man, when Tim Lewicki came in and Colangelo came in, I think that regime was all about winning and changing culture. And that I don't think those two guys necessarily get as much credit. I think Masai and Bobby get a lot of that credit, and fair enough. I think everyone deserves credit in that. But I think people really need to understand where this team was under Rob Babcock to really see how much legitimacy Colangelo's 1 year, at least his first year brought to it. And I think a lot of the pieces that persisted and ended up becoming really valuable pieces for the Raptors, like DeMar, JV, Kyle Lowry, you owe those all to Colangelo. So I feel like, Raptor fans often like clown his time because they like to remember him for like Andrea and Hidu, but they don't remember him for the good parts. It's kind of like brushing over history in a really stupid way. And I've never really appreciated that. But I think Tim Lewicki deserves a lot of credit too, because he talked about winning culture a lot and changing mindset, habits, standards, and that shit was really like all I was about when I was 21, 22 when I watched him. Tim Lewicki coming to the Raptors was like a really big deal for me. And so I don't really think the Raptors have really been big tankers. The last time I can really think about the Raptors tanking was like Chris Bosh, Andrea Bargnani, and Scottie Barnes. I think most of the other times when they picked in the lottery, they've just been really bad and they didn't know how to get out of it.
Do you even think RJ was sick? Because that could be like a wink. It could be. Like, listen, maybe they tell him like, hey, games like this, the Wizards, games like that are up in the air, you're not going to play. And all the other games you're going to play, and you're going to go full throttle those games. But games like tonight, they gas him.
I'm not really sure what the value of tanking is right now. I'm not really sure what the value of the play-in is right now, because chances are the Raptors are literally like almost just as far away from both outcomes, right? Even if you do end up with a sixth slot, you have a 45% chance of keeping your pick. See my point?
Wait, is it a 45 or 55?
I thought it was 45.
They have to have a positive chance of them keeping it if they're sixth, right?
It's not necessarily true. Hold on a sec. Let me just find Tankathon 1 second. So the Raptors have a at 6%.
It has to be positive.
So they would have a 37.2% chance of moving up into the top 4. I think what it means is there's a 45% chance they keep number 6. And then there's that smaller chance that you move down based on the cumulative odds of every team above you or below you moving up.
Wait, so you don't even have a 50% chance of just staying top 6?
No, you do. Because dude, at number 6, you have a 37.2% chance of moving up into the top 4.
Yeah, that's pretty big though. That's pretty big.
It is pretty big. It's huge. And it happens every year that some team from 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever is going to move into the top 4. I'm waiting for the year that the draft balls end up in such a way that every single team in the top 4 gets bumped down. And it could happen. It totally could happen.
Oh yeah.
Like Detroit right now has the worst record. And I don't know if they're tied with Washington or if Washington is like, because Washington just won the game. So they're both 10 and 53. They're deadlocked with a 15.9% percentage. Yikes. So those two teams, just to give people an idea of what I'm looking at here. Okay, so those two teams are sitting at the top two, right? So they have a 14% chance each of the number one overall pick. All three do. So this flattening of the odds between 1, 2, and 3, like, that's crazy. Where I came from, the worst record had a 25% chance.
Yeah.
I think the second one used to have 17.5, and then the third one used to have 12. It went down significantly.
That's crazy.
Now
That's crazy.
you flatten the odds at the very top.
Yeah.
You're technically very, very close to the same odds of getting a number one overall pick as the sixth team as you are as the 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah.
So really, finishing bottom 6, as much as it is about keeping your pick, it also is about having a legitimate shot at getting the first or second overall pick.
Yeah.
You know, mathematically, it's a pretty solid fucking chance. Like the flattening of the odds changes this, right? So, Haramis saying, were the Raptors projected 7th or 6th when they jumped to 4th to draft Scotty? They were projected 7th.
Yep.
So, yeah, and I believe they were also, weirdly enough, so here's a little Raptor trivia for everybody. Does anyone remember where the Raptors were scheduled to draft when the Raptors picked Chris Bosh prior to the draft lottery? Does anyone remember where the Raptors were prior to the Chris Bosh draft lottery, or the 2003 draft lottery?
Yeah, I got no clue.
Okay. I do. And I can definitely tell you a story as to why I have a clue. So that was the LeBron James draft. Nick laughed, saying 7th. Nope. Billy saying 3rd. Yes. Oh, you're saying 5th. 3rd.
Oh, so they lost the spot.
Yeah. They moved down. And that was so fucking disastrous because it was considered a top 3 draft. And
really?
You have to think about it. Yeah, it was considered a 3-person draft. It was Melo, LeBron, and Darko Milicic, for those who remember. And Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh were not being considered in that category. And they were like, could Chris Bosh make it a top 4 draft? And it wasn't. You know, like the way Milicic and Melo and LeBron were thought of, it was like there's 3 franchise players in this draft, and they're 1, 2, and 3. Obviously, that ended up being not true. There were 3 franchise players in the draft. They were 1, 3, and 5. So the Raptors narrowly missed out on one, and then completely missed out on the other one. Interestingly enough, fun little fact about the 2003 draft: the Miami Heat had Chris Bosh over Dwayne Wade on their draft board.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting.
But Rob, Desmond Bane is coming back. So, this is probably Masai's thought process. We have it's in our control whether we want it or not. And I'm going to do whatever. In his mind, he's probably thinking, I'm going to do whatever I can to try to keep the pick. Because, like you just said, you have a chance to get the first pick, even with the sixth best odds. So
I mean, look, they're doing a lot to tank right now, right? You have Jakob Poeltl, and you've shut him down pretty much, potentially for the season. You could shut him down. As much as he has basically said he does not want to tank. Jakob Poeltl has been very anti-tank. In every interview he's been asked about, like, being on a team that's losing, he's just like, as long as we're still trying to win, I don't want to be part of a tanking team, whatever. Okay, well, now you're part of a tanking team. Congratulations. But you don't have to be physically a part of it, because we're just going to shut you down for the season because you stubbed a pinky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, have we seen Jakob Poeltl on the bench? I don't recall seeing him on the bench. So it's like, whatever. Early vacation for Jakob, okay? And then, Scotty, same thing. Like, did Scotty opt for the surgery because they kind of want to tank and just nudged him in the right direction? Because this thing probably would have healed on its own, right? There's that.
They still haven't fully said he's out, so I don't know what that's about.
Dude, it would be the most Raptor thing in the fucking history of the world if the Raptors have the 6th pick on lock, and somehow 2 games from the end of the season, Scottie Barnes comes back and beats the Miami Heat 2 times. I'm gonna snap
like a homecoming game. Like, he's like, please, I want to play at home.
Oh my god, I will personally go to the game and just like I will stage protest on the middle of the court, and I will say, I will not let Scottie Barnes play in this game.
I'm telling you, it's in the Raptors' hands if they want 6, because
it's not. It's never in your hands when you're trailing, ever. I count losses when it comes to this shit. Like if the Memphis
Jr. and Desmond Bane are way better than anyone on this team. Like they're gonna single-handed, both of them are gonna win. Like,
bro, you have games coming up against the Pistons, the Wizards, the Hornets. Like you have bad teams coming up. Like you can say, okay, you know, whatever. They lost to the Blazers. You lost to the Blazers on the road, and they're playing pretty well right now.
And they're also they're also like resting a lot of good players too.
Yeah, they were. And
the Pistons are gonna have.
Like I mean, and what's going on with Bruce Brown? Have we heard what's going on with Bruce Brown?
Oh, I've totally forgot about him.
Right. So the Raptors are fully tanking right now. Like as much as like, and it's funny because I have this video. I think it's like a month old at this point, and I said the Raptors refused to tank, and they had the 6th fucking pick at that point, man. They had it, and they lost it.
I was against it when Scotty's on the court. Like, just let's play.
Big picture, bro. There's such a talent deficit on this team that if you have a chance at a top 6 pick, even in a weak draft, you take it. Because that asset, even if you don't take the player, is worth so much more than the 18th pick is going to be worth next year.
Absolutely. But I thought, after like that 3-game win streak, after that Pacers game, I was thinking they were going to play 500. There was a chance they played 500 basketball the rest of the way.
There is also another talking point here, which is Ben Mathurin is out for the season.
You and I don't like him, so
we don't like him. But I will tell you this.
A good thing for the Pacers.
Hold on, it's not. It's definitely not a good thing. I don't like him, but I will tell you this. In a play-in situation, which is exactly where the Pacers are barreling towards a play-in. I'm almost convinced that they are going to be in the play-in at some point. Okay, in a play-in situation where you have one game, do or die, and like they're 8th right now. Okay, so they're 8th. Philadelphia somehow is 7th. They started out 1st, by the way, and everyone is saying, oh my God, Nick Nurse is such a genius. Okay, well, now he's not a genius because he has a depleted roster. Okay. Brooklyn Nets are in free fall. So this almost feels like, to me, mathematically, those are the 4 teams in the play-in. Like there's virtually zero chance, in my opinion, given where the Sixers are going and where the Heat are going. Like, it seems to me that these are going to be the 4 teams in the play-in. Now, it's very hard for me to imagine that if Joel Embiid comes back and he's even relatively healthy, I don't know if he's going to come back. I haven't been following that very closely. If he comes back and he's relatively healthy, they're beating Indiana in a plug and play game. Just no chance. Okay, Nick Nurse in a one game, locking up Pascal Siakam. Oh yeah, he knows how to do that for sure. He knows that dude's game pretty well. And in that situation, you won't have Ben Mathurin, which is a really big loss in a one game, situation.
Like in a one game situation, he's very valuable.
Also, and also we are finding out that Buddy Hield probably meant a lot to, the overall game of Tyrese Halliburton and how the Pacers wanted to play. He's not so easy to replace. Like he may be atrocious on defense, but he is a bad player. He's a bad dude on offense. And when I mean like bad dude, I mean like he's great. And he's going to have a chance at revenge because he's on the Sixers right now. Yeah, so I feel like
he embodied their entire way, their entire like play style. He embodied that.
He did. And
is the complete opposite.
Because he slows everything down and he doesn't take enough threes. Yeah, absolutely. So here's the thing. Do I think that a fully healthy Atlanta Hawks or Chicago Bulls could beat the Pacers in a single playing game without Ben Mathurin? Yes, I do. I actually do.
I actually think the Bulls would beat them.
So do I. But and that's the crazy thing. It's like I'm not trying to be like a prisoner of the moment. Obviously, if you really, really think about it, like the Pacers do have the best player. King Kylie, is Maxey out indefinitely? I don't know. Honestly, I think did the Maxey thing happen during Pendance? And I'm just like not caught up with it and just see like where are we at right now. Also, is Tyrese Maxey kind of costing himself potentially most
he's
improved player?
restricted. Wasn't he restricted?
Forget that. I'm saying like who's going to win most improved player? This was Tyrese Maxey's award locked down.
Oh yeah, true. Probably going to give it to like Kobe White or something.
Oh my God. It's been nearly a week since Tyrese Maxey suffered an injury after hitting his head on the knee of a defender during last Saturday's game. Maxey left the court to be evaluated for concussion. Initially, Maxey was cleared to return to the game. He finished the victory out with the Mavs. Any real setbacks was Tuesday that Maxey started experiencing concussion symptoms. Oh, shit. Heading into the matchup against the Nets, the Sixers downgraded Maxey's playing status from available to out. The Sixers didn't put a definitive timeline on Maxey's return to action, playing it day by day. They started ruling him out against the Memphis Grizzlies on Wednesday. Then the team returned to the court to take on the New Orleans Pelicans. There were positive signs that Maxey was trending in the right direction towards returning following Philly's Friday morning shoot-around. Maxey participated in a solo workout session. Later on, the veteran guard was seen how is he a veteran guard? Okay. Was seen partaking in pregame workout. Unfortunately, he's still not been cleared from concussion protocol. I don't think he's out for the season, dude. You're not going to be out for the season for concussion protocol, in my opinion. There's just very little chance that's going to happen. So expect him back next week. Based on how that's trending, unless there's something very, very severe that I don't know about. I mean, concussion protocol is nothing light nothing to be taken lightly, but I don't think he's going to be out for that long. That being said, Tyrese Maxey and even Buddy Hield is enough potentially to be competitive in a one game play-in series. And I do think that, between Tyrese Halliburton and Tyrese Maxey, yeah, you could say Halliburton's definitely the better player, but I think that could be a competitive game, even without Joel Embiid. It could be competitive.
Tomorrow, the Pacers are at Orlando, and I think that game's going to say a lot about the Pacers.
Dude, did you watch Orlando last night? They had 54 points going into the fourth quarter.
They finished the game with 74.
Bro, that's not even the depressing part. They had 54 points, and it was the fourth quarter.
Yeah, well, their offense.
Can you imagine a team in the modern NBA finishing a half with less than 54 points right now? Is hard. Yeah, imagine insane. Finishing 3 quarters. You played 36 minutes and scored 54 points. Bro, and not even against a good team.
But this goes back to what we were just talking about like 5 minutes ago when I said I wanted the Raptors to compete because the East is not that good. Like the East, it's kind of reminding me like it's way better than it was like in 2016. But sure. It's like it's really like the Magic are 10 games above 500 and they have a terrible offense. They do have a terrific defense, but they're like, this is like, right. You're going to tell me if the Raptors are fully healthy, they can't play 500 basketball next year? They absolutely can. So
of course they can. And I mean, a lottery pick and potentially a second lottery pick. This is the part that we haven't gotten to, which is if things go really, really, really wrong for the Pacers, which they fully can, their pick is not at all protected this year. There's no protection on that pick. If I'm not mistaken, I don't believe it's top 3 protected actually. So I retract that statement. I believe it's top 3 protected this year.
Yeah, well, it's not going to get there though. So,
okay. So chances are, if they finish
0.002,
yeah, something like that. I know.
Maybe like 0.5.
So the 14th place has a 0.5% chance. But they would have a 2.4% chance of moving into the top 4 if they finished 14th. At 13th, those odds double to 4.8%. So in terms of top 3, finishing 14th or 13th, that would be like the miracle of miracles for the Pacers, that they somehow make the play-in, miss the playoffs, and then get a top 3 pick would be crazy. That being said, Tyrese Halliburton is kind of turning into an NBA darling, and if the league is at all fixed, the Pacers are getting a top 3 pick this year. My point is, if things go as expected and things maybe roll a little bit into the Raptors' favor, there is at least a chance and I'm saying a small chance, but a chance that the Raptors end up with the 13th pick and maybe a top 3 pick this year. That, to me, is such a significant win in terms of what you can potentially do with this roster, especially if you start including Bruce Brown and Chris Boucher with those 2 picks. You have a real chance. And I have a feeling the Raptors are not going to take that chance. And instead, what they're going to do is they're going to select 2 players that they really believe in, or maybe 1 player that they really believe in, and then trade the other pick. But either way, a lottery pick is a lottery pick until you use it. Then it just becomes a player that maybe someone is not so high on. But there's still a cachet about lottery picks. You should see like the value of a 14th or 13th pick versus the 15th or 16th pick is significant because there's this arbitrary, weird cutoff in people's brains about what a lottery pick is worth, especially when you talk about like the buzz of trading for one, right? Like the headline of like, oh, we traded this young player that's not working out for a lottery pick. And people are like, ooh, wow, they got a lottery pick. So that's the point. Like if somebody, like I think there's a chance that this could happen. It's a small chance, but if it does happen, the Raptors might be able to fix their entire roster in one off season, which would be great.
So Grady Dick tonight, 3 for 10 from the field.
I don't care.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't really matter. The reps is the only thing.
39 minutes, bro. 39 minutes of real NBA game time action. And he wasn't great, no denying it, but you know, I remain consistently pretty good with him.
What are your thoughts on like them again? Sometimes you have to remind yourself that they're tanking. But what are your thoughts on them like just trying to just put all the usage into Gary? Like, because what are your thoughts on that?
Like, what do you mean? Putting all the usage into Gary, like because he's taking so many shots.
Yeah, like they're pumping the usage into him. Of course, there isn't much better options.
Personally, I think with the type of culture you're trying to build, I don't think that Darko Rajakovic is going to go up to Gary Trent and be like, "Hey, buddy, I know it's your game, but like we need you to take fewer shots so this young shiny rookie can get more shots." I don't think it's ever going to work that way with the Raptors under Darko Rajakovic, and
he's not that type of guy.
I'm glad he's not that type of guy. What a dipshit, thing, to do. At some point, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. I've been pretty relaxed about doing lives because I'm trying to sort out like my entire life over this month. So I promise that at some point we're going to talk about this. But there's a phenomenal bunch of research that's been done recently about clutch squared percentages in relation to isolation scores versus guys who are a little bit more egalitarian with their isolation possessions, like Jokic, LeBron, etc., versus guys like Kobe, Luka. And when you take into account how the game flattens out towards the end, there's like 3 components that make an offense work. And they are where a shot will come from, how it will come, and who will take it. And where, when, how, and where, when, how. Yeah. So where a shot will come from. So like how dynamic is the player that, or your team in terms of like if your whole team couldn't shoot threes, like you're fucked, right? Like your offense becomes so predictable. Everyone can kind of sag to the paint. You become less dynamic. So that's where it will come. Towards the end of the game, when it will come, right? Are you going to take it with 2 seconds left on the clock? Are you going to take it with 7 seconds left on the clock? That's why offensive possessions late into the game becomes so hard. And then so you have the where. So where will it come from on the court? You have the when, which becomes becomes easier to predict as the game goes down, to the wire. And, that's why clutch shots are so important. And then the who, as in who will take it. And this is the final thing. When you have a guy like Damian Lillard, who yesterday repeatedly, if you watch the Lakers game, fantastic game, by the way.
Yeah.
Lakers versus Bucks, and the Bucks choke it away at the end. Damian Lillard gets blocked by Spencer Dinwiddie. D'Angelo Russell hits huge shots.
Crazy.
And I just thought it was so interesting to watch how a guy who made up his mind quite a few times, and in Damian Lillard, who's a capable passer, but made up his mind a couple of times that he was going to be the guy to take the shot, which is what a lot of guys, a lot of people want Scotty to be. They want Scotty to be like, that's the guy who's going to take the shot. And Scotty's just like, no, I'm always going to make the right pass. there is so much evidence to suggest that the way Jokic, LeBron, and subsequently Scottie play is more effective than the way that guys like Jordan, Kobe, and Damian Lillard play. And I think that the epitome of it was Spencer Dinwiddie blocking Damian Lillard, because as the clock goes down and you're not going to pass, what you're about to do becomes so much more predictable.
Yeah.
And in terms of clutch square percentage, in terms of actual value added in the clutch, LeBron is head and shoulders above the rest of the league historically, for good reason, because he's always willing to make that pass.
His entire career?
Last 20 years, 17 years. I believe the data went back to 2005. Historically, he's outperforming Kobe in the clutch significantly.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh yeah.
And which is crazy because people think of Kobe as the clutch guy and they think of LeBron as the choker, but that's the point. Kobe so often took dumb shots in the clutch, and it's like, rest in peace, Mamba. Love it. You want sureness, but there are so many missed shots that Kobe took over 4 defenders, 3 defenders, where there were wide open shooters, and it's just like, we need to get away from this theory of basketball where one of the biggest shots in Lakers history was Robert Horry, against I believe it was the Portland Trailblazers or Sacramento Kings, where he hits the shot from the top. The other one was Ray Allen in the corner, like Ray Allen, role player Ray Allen, not superstar Ray Allen that he was with Milwaukee, Seattle. So I just keep thinking to myself, like, the way the Raptors are building around Scottie, they are building a team culture that fits his mentality. Darko fits his mentality.
Yep.
Last year, too often, a guy like Siakam or Van Vliet was just going to take the shot no matter what, and it was going to go to them no matter what, and it was just the wrong play over and over.
Those Van Vliet bombs from 30 feet that would airball.
Mm-hmm.
You remember those? He would do those routinely. He had that.
Yeah, and that's my point. It's like, this mentality of basketball is archaic.
I gotta shoot it.
It's wrong. Exactly. It comes from AAU. It comes from high school. It comes from when your teammates in high school. I mean, the gap between AJ DeBonsa and his teammates in high school, or Cooper Flagg and his teammates, is not the same gap as Kobe and Devin George or Kobe and Ty Lue. Like, I understand Kobe's much better than Devin George, Ty Lue, Smush Parker, Kwame Brown, and all the other players. But Kwame Brown's still an NBA fucking player. You cannot ignore him wide open underneath the basket, hoist a contested 3 because of your ego, because that's it. It is ego. It is a stupid way of playing basketball. European basketball players don't typically learn how to play this way. Vlade Divac, Goran Dragic, all these guys, they all make like that extra pass. Jokic especially is like the walking embodiment. Like, if you double him with the game on the line, he's passing to an open shooter every time. LeBron, same thing. How many times has LeBron said, I will always make the right play? How many times has LeBron given the shine to somebody else to make the pass? Even when we think about, one of the most defining moments of Michael Jordan's clutch career, it was passing to Steve Kerr. When you think about so many clutch plays from the Golden State Warriors, do you know that Steph Curry is one of the worst clutch players in NBA history? In terms of superstars, he is one of the worst. But his teammates have been consistently amazing because of how much gravity he draws and because of his willingness to pass. If Steph Curry was as stubborn as Kobe, he would have 0 championships. This is the point. Unselfish superstars are the way to go. Scotty Barnes, unselfish superstar. This is a preview of a video that I definitely want to do. I think it's a great topic to explore about why the Raptors are better primed for success than teams that are building around players that maybe fit more of the old archetype, like Paolo Banchero. Yeah. Anyways, any closing thoughts? Hello? Your mic is off, dude.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, so I was going to expand on that, but I'd rather close on something else that you kind of touched on, which is Nick Nurse.
Mm-hmm.
So I was having a conversation with someone on Twitter about how overrated Nick Nurse is and how, without Joel and Tyrese, specifically Joel, how, like, just average of a coach he is. Like, he's literally the league average coach. If you just take he's still giving up corner threes at an alarming rate. Like, defensively, it's just a lot of, you know, schematic schemes where he's just throwing, you know, he didn't invent that, but like he ushered in that you know, junk defense style. But
I think he's a fine coach. I don't buy this top 5 shit, and I
because he
don't.
looks the part. That's why.
What do you mean looks the part?
Oh, you know, I don't want to say because he's white and he has glasses on, but I do think a lot of that comes to play because he won his first year, and because he's a really good media guy, and because I think there's a lot of that that comes to play because like for example, Brad Stevens, who is to me is a way better coach than Nick Nurse, he got insanely overrated because of that same thing. Because there was a point where people were actually saying Brad Stevens or Giannis. Like, I don't know if you remember that. There was a time like on Twitter. No. Go back, you can find that. Giannis or Brad Stevens. Who would you rather
that's
have?
just like our brains are wired for stories, and some stories fit and other stories don't, right? A guy who looks like me, if you try to say that guy is the best coach in the league, maybe that's going to be a little bit harder of a sell. And I think with black coaches, it's even harder, right?
Yeah, that's
so you're right. I think race does play a component into it, which is why in the last call I made the point of trying to address the Chris Boucher no brains situation, like that whole thing, because I think very often the adjective smart and the racial, component of white go hand in hand when it comes to basketball.
Yeah, I do that. Even I do it. Like I do that with like.
And you're a person of color?
Yeah, I'm black, and I do that. Like I love Reed Shepherd. I'm like, he's so smart,
right?
Like, really,
and that's the thing. And then so you gotta always try to frame it back to like, there are so many black players who are super smart, super duper fucking smart. I think who is like
Kyle Lowry.
Kyle Lowry is a great example of a player who's super smart. I'm trying to think of an example that people don't usually think that guy is super smart, but like he's super duper duper smart shit.
I think DeMar is pretty smart too.
Yeah.
Like scoring wise, like he's very like him and Harden are really, really good at they crack the code.
Jaylen Brown is like smart off the court.
Yeah, I don't think he's on the court.
He's not the most on court smart, but Jaylen Brown off the court is a fucking genius. Scotty Barnes is a great example of someone that people often, like I saw this guy getting trolled for going up to Giannis, and he was like, "Do you see that Twitter thing?"
Yeah, I thought that was a funny thing. I thought that
he was just being funny, and he was talking about like the team towel boy or trainer or whatever. I thought it was hilarious, and it was such a characteristically Scotty thing. And it's like, yo, so here's the thing. I think it's kind of interesting. There's so much to talk about when it comes to bias, implicit bias, even when it's not an insidious, mean-spirited bias. I think people often like mistake having prejudice or bias as meaning, that I'm bad. And then people are very quick to just jump away from it and be like, no, I don't have prejudice. I don't have prejudice. Prejudice is something to address, not something to chastise or criticize or whatever. It's just something to address because we all do have some sort of prejudice. Do we assume that tall people are naturally better at basketball? Yes, that is prejudice because they're not always better at basketball, right?
Yeah.
Do we have a prejudice that we think black people are naturally better at basketball or sports in general or dancing or singing? Yeah, these are all prejudices and they should be addressed aptly. And do we often think when we see a white guy on a basketball court that he can probably shoot and that he's pretty smart? Yeah, we usually do. And that's a prejudice too. And all of these things need to be addressed, I think, to some extent, because they're not always true. White players are not always smart. Some are quite dumb and they make a lot of mistakes. Black players are not always just on the court because they're super athletic and they can dunk and handle the basketball, because some of them are truly, truly, truly freaking cerebral. Yeah. So I think it's a worthwhile.
I wanted to add one last thing to my Nick Nurse. I don't want to like just bash him and say he's overrated because he's like I have that.
But you're
hate.
so right, though. He does fit a stereotype. He fits a
Yeah.
stereotype of nerdy basketball, super
He's got
intellectual.
the glasses, and the junk defense thing really, really vaulted him into like, oh, he's so smart. But really, like
Right.
you had
Box and one.
Kyle
We ran
Lowry.
box and one in high school, bro. Like, yeah, I get it. And it's like, here's the thing.
You had an
He
all-time.
also has like a distinct advantage of like being able to sell himself as such. He understands branding in a way that I think most people really don't. He has the NN hat, and he has like a distinct personality which forces him to stand above other people, right? He puts himself into the spotlight a lot. He's very animated. He's very outspoken. He gives the media a good quote. He also dazzles them a little bit. Some coaches are very reserved, shy. They don't draw a lot of attention to themselves. Personally, I like that.
Much better.
Who's your favorite coach in the NBA? Kind of curious for a top 5 list.
Okay, so it's funny. I had another conversation that I wanted to speak about, but I'm like very, very fascinated right now with Billy Donovan.
Okay.
Like, I'm telling you right now, because I've watched the Bulls a lot because DeMar was my favorite player. I can't believe how good defensively he has them playing the last few years. Like some of the stuff he does with Vucevic and DeMar, like we all know how bad DeMar is at the point of attack, and Vucevic like is so bad at the rim, but like he has them playing at the level, kind of like with Jokic in the pick and roll, where like, and then the rotations and Caruso's a monster, but the fact that he has these guys playing at a top 5 level last year, and then this year, they've been really good for like 2 months. Didn't they start like 8 games under 500?
Yeah, they were bad.
Yeah, and then now they're like they even went to the wire today with the Clippers, and like I don't know how he does it. So like he would be number 1, like most underrated.
I'm not talking about most underrated. I'm talking best coaches. So 5 best coaches in the NBA that you would want to run your team and go.
All right, so,
and it's got to be quick because we got to go to the post game.
So Mark Dagnall.
Weirdly enough, he's also my number 1, and it's not just because people tell me I look like him. I'm just fascinated by the stuff that he does.
He's got the Darko thing. Like he's less than the team.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Like Nick Nurse, he would go on like Ryan Russillo's podcast and like talk about himself, and he'd wear the hat. Like that just bothered me so much. But I do like Ty Lue. I think he has to prove some stuff this year because he was called the Bill Belichick of coaches for winning 1 championship. So we'll see we'll see. He's gonna have to do some stuff this year. In the East, let me see. I do like Rick Carlisle.
Sure, me too.
Man, at the top, Missoula. So not really Missoula.
Willie Green.
Up the East, Willie Green. Man, as a Pelicans fan, Willie Green. All right. So there's 2 sides of coaching. There's the tactical stuff, and then there's the interpersonal stuff. And he nails the interpersonal stuff. Guys love him, like they absolutely love him.
Yeah.
So I don't, because I remember. So like I'm a Pelicans fan, and they hated Stan Van Gundy because he was just an old school coach.
Right.
But he's also a really good tactical guy.
Right.
So
yeah. Sorry, you're not moving through these fast enough.
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm gonna list out a few. Mark Dagnall for sure. I'm gonna go with.
Coach Trust. My bad.
Coach Spo for sure. That's 2. I do like Darko Rajakovic. I'm a little reluctant to put him into this conversation right now, given like the depths of talent that there is around the league.
He'll be unanimous like in 2-3 years.
We'll see. Yeah, let's hope. Let's hope for him. I do like Ime Udoka for the same reason that I like Willie Green, which is like he really, really understands how to push people and push their buttons.
Yeah.
But yeah. And I think for the most part,
I think Budenholzer is kind of underrated as well. I feel like he gets he got some bad pub. for some of the lack of adjustments. Like he's really, really smart.
Yeah, for sure. I think Will Hardy is another one that I
Oh
really
yeah,
like.
yeah, Will Hardy too.
Not just to always go with the young guys or whatever, but I think he's been really interesting for me. Yeah, there. So, anyways, and Mike Malone is another guy that I
Mike Malone too.
genuinely think is a really good guy who really gets his players and gets coaching, and I'm really amazed by some of the progress that Peyton Watson has made under him.
Yeah.
So surprise,
Also,
surprise. Some of the best teams have the best coaches, but I do see like a lot more coaching talent in the West, and I also like Ty Lue. So yeah, there's
just 10 seconds here. I just wanted to say, Nick Nurse. Again, thankful for everything he's done, but some of the stuff with the hat and the TV shows that his cameos on TV shows, like some of that stuff, it was very, very obvious to see why some of his players disliked him, which, you just can't be doing that as a coach. And, Darko and most of all coaches would never, ever do stuff like that. Like just walk around with a hat with your initials on it. Like that's kind of crazy. And it's funny that he did not bring any of that to Philadelphia. He left all that in Canada, which to me kind of perturbed me.
Didn't shock me at all. I think he caught a lot of negativity for it. Ironically, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I started it. But I'm glad. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Sometimes I think I started something and then I find out that it actually started somewhere else. But very often I do believe that I did start the critique about him wearing his stupid NN hat. And I made such a big stink about him with the NN hat. And
I wasn't listening to you last year. I found out about the channel this summer.
The way commentary works in basketball is like if you have one video with like 8, 10, 12, 13,000 views, your key points from that video are then adopted by so many people who covered the team. They hear about it. They hear about it at a lunch pub, whatever. Ideas travel. If Samson starts to use a word, in Raptors Republic a lot, that word will if he uses it 20 times, it will work itself into like a NBA Chev video at some point or a Pinsari basketball video. We're so connected. We're all so connected. So if one person really, really starts to make a point about how underrated Jeff Doughton is, for instance, it's gonna start to move. If you can achieve critical mass with your platform, which is to say like, some of the lives we had last year, 10, 12, 13, 15,000 views, that's a lot of people who talk Raptors every day with their friends. So when you start talking about the actual reach of your key points, it could be like 100,000 people. You know what I mean? So like the Pascal Siakam is not a superstar rant. The Fred VanVleet is selfish rant. Those rants, because of and then you also are not talking about the videos that come in response to that video, even though they don't say they're directly responding to the video. If you make a video saying Pascal Siakam is not a top 20 player, suddenly that point is now a talking point around Raptors Twitter. So there's going to be 50 people that are going to make a post about how you're such an idiot and how some idiots on YouTube think that Pascal Siakam is not a top 20 player, which opens up the debate for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people to talk about whether he is or he's not, which, if your point was to open that can of worms, congratulations, Pinsari basketball. Then you have people who are in other videos and then they make a video saying he is a top 20 player, which is boom, also a part of the equation. So suddenly something that was taken for granted, which is this guy who's 2-time All-NBA and an NBA champion is a top 20 player, is suddenly up for debate because you made a video saying something. And that's my point. So when I made a very big stink about Nick Nurse and his stupid hats. So it's interesting that you're bringing up the talking point because I don't remember necessarily a lot of people bringing that up. So anyways,
last thing, funny enough, Fred and Nick, thinking about it right now, were so alike.
Yeah, that was pretty much my commentary all last year. Anyways, man, cheers. Have a good one.
Yeah, peace. Man, thank you.
See ya. Okay, before we get to the post game, just a really, really quick shout out when it comes to biases, erasing linguistic biases, etc. The Pendants Film Festival, which I run, announces its 4 winners, and guess what? Not a single English language film was awarded at Pendants this year. So a big shout out to 24/7, Excursion, Una Gonyak, Jester's Flaming Hot Mac and Cheese, which was freaking hilarious if you watched it, and The Accident, which is just a brilliant, brilliant feature. And I implore anyone to catch it. You know, if you're in France, it's coming to a French film festival near you very soon. You're definitely going to be able to catch it on streaming. This movie is incredible. They're all incredible. And I think, you know, so proud of this because, hey, man, like we were at a point as a film festival in 2021 where literally every single film that was awarded and every film that was a runner-up to be awarded was English language. That doesn't mean that I have anything against English language films, but I do want to say the vast majority of films produced in the world that make money, like in terms of like who buys what, I think I looked at the numbers for 10 years. 60 to 80% of the money goes into films where English is one of the main languages. Personally, I think linguistic preservation is very important. You know, when you talk about languages that are dying out, languages that are not often seen on the world stage, it means a lot to people to hear something in their language. It's a language is how you introduce to the world. You know what I mean? If you grew up speaking Swahili and then eventually you ended up speaking English later on when you moved to Canada, there's still something very distinct and very personal about Swahili. And so maybe, you know, watching a film in Swahili is going to be very important to you. There's a lot of, you know, research to suggest that you're actually a lot more rational in your second language than you are in your first language. For instance, let's say you grew up speaking Mandarin and you learned about the whole world as a child speaking Mandarin, which is one of the most frequently spoken languages in the world. I believe it's the second most frequently spoken language after English. But let's say you move to Vancouver, you move to Toronto, and then you start speaking English at the age of 9 or 8 or 7. You will be more rational at the age of 20 in English than you would be in Mandarin. However, you will be more emotionally responsive to Mandarin. Interesting scientific tidbit. So if you need to decide whether or not to break up with somebody, you can actually go into both, which is why I find that people that speak multiple languages are often, I don't want to say smarter, no offense. I feel like a lot of the audience is going to be pissed off if I say that, but they do have more interesting brains, which is another way of saying they have more dynamic range in their brain when you speak multiple languages. I think it's really important for people to speak multiple languages. And if you are someone with young children, try to teach them another language. It's usually very good. Anyways, let's get to the post game. Random side note aside. Also, 3:55 in the morning. What is going on here? We got 164 people at 3:55 in the morning.
Funny there, Chris.
That's crazy. Appreciate y'all.
Bump my knee to the ground, I think. So, yeah, it is what it is.
Is that the same knee you hurt?
No. Different knee. Yeah.
It's second night in a row here. You've provided a ton of energy, and just take us through that comeback down the stretch in the fourth quarter. What was going right for your group?
I think we wanted to play harder. I think we have we have a tendency to start the game a little slow, but we usually come back, and I think we find a way to get shots, get open shots, and play better defense. And they had a lot of offensive rebounds and open shots that we took out from them. So I think it was just a better second half.
When you're coming in like that, I mean, you've kind of done it your whole career.
Yeah.
What's the first thing on your mind when you hit the floor?
I mean, I've been to so many games where we were down and get the chance to, do comebacks and all. I think the one with Kyle, and we had one against Washington, and we had a lot of it this year, Spurs and all. I mean, you come in the game, you want to do something to change the game. I think that's one I want to leave. I want to leave a mark as somebody that could change the game. And I think as playing as a team, we're a young team, we're learning, but I think we're working extremely hard, and we're sticking together. And obviously, it doesn't show up with the win, but I think with the performance, sometimes the moments that we have, it shows that we can have great moments.
You guys have had many games, a game like this with multiple lineups. Mm-hmm. Obviously, RJ last minute out. What do you think has been a consistent thread for your team when you are faced with different looks at your lineups, but are able to find some type of rhythm, some type of flow?
I think everybody works extremely hard since this summer, so everybody's kind of ready. You know, we work extremely hard on plays and all in practice, and also I think everybody get the chance to kind of know what the plays are and stay in shape with the play groups, and also when you come in the game, you know, you just want to do either better than the person in front of you or just the same. And I think one thing that we're doing extremely well this year is just everybody's in the learn process, so everybody's going to make mistakes, but we all also know that people are making strides too.
How have you been able to stay present throughout the season, through playing and not playing, and having impacts on games like tonight?
I mean, it's not my first year that this happens. I think it happens a lot where I don't play. But, you know, my confidence is always staying the same. I think my role is always the same. When I come in a game, they expect me to bring energy and get rebounds and just put a little bit of chaos in the game. And that's also, you know, something that I know I'm able to do. So it doesn't really change much through the year. Obviously, you got ups and downs, but I think the one thing that I'm able to do now is sustain the moments where I'm not playing well, the moment when I'm not, you know, on the floor. I'm able to just stay above, knowing that I already went through it before.
In ways that you're able to play well off of Kelly, what are you noticing about how he's been able to kind of get other guys going and involve them on offense?
I mean, Kelly got, you know, obviously on defense he got great hands and all that, so that helps us in transition. But he also is a great passer. I think that helps us a lot. At 7 foot, it's kind of hard to deflect his passing and all, especially when he's passing it over top and seeing cutters. But like I said, I've seen Kelly play for so long that it's not, you know, it's not surprising for me to see him hit all those passes and all that. You know, he has his own pace, and it's kind of hard to know what he's going to do, so that makes him really special.
Take away that first quarter, and, you know, overtime was kind of unfortunate. It was another example of a very good effort, kind of undone by a poor start.
Yes, poor start. I thought that we were really creating good looks. You know, we missed some wide open shots, and the biggest problem in that first half was really rebounding, and we allowed them 15-second chance points. Ayton was just way too dominant for us inside, and but I thought that as the game progressed, that we did much better job in the second half, just being more physical. And you know, Jalen came in off the bench and ended up with 10 rebounds. I thought that was good for us, but overall it came down to our 20 turnovers and allowing them a lot of second chance points.
How did you see things break down in overtime and just sort of the first field goal coming as late as it did?
It came down really to us defensively. We did not do a good enough job of executing what we were saying. We did not want Simons to get his shots. We wanted to get the ball out of his hands and get somebody else there to score. And then offensively, I thought that Portland brought a lot of physicality, and as the game was progressing, we were trying to figure out how to play against that physicality there. Again, in overtime, I thought that we took a couple of good shots, and they didn't fall.
I mean, I know that the sum is the win or the loss, but when you look at like the final 2 minutes of regulation and just what the guys were able to put together, what were you liking about the communication that was going right in those moments?
No, as I said, like, I'm really proud of our effort, and we never stopped competing. We never stopped fighting for each other, and I give a lot of credit to our guys staying in the game and finding the way to get back in the game. And but you know, when you start the game with that deep, you know, with a big differential there, you just got put way too much in the game later on. And but I thought also by the end of the regulation time that we were way tired going into overtime because we gave it all that we had there in that stretch in the fourth quarter just to force the overtime.
Aside from his leg, what about just how Chris showed up? Is that sort of what you needed from him kind of all along in terms of the emphasis on energy?
No doubt. He did a great job tonight of being aggressive, of just being on boards, being activated with his hands, just playing with a lot of effort.
What happened there with his knee from your perspective, and how did he manage to stay ready to come back into overtime?
Yeah, I think he just landed in a bad position, but he was able to come back and finish the game. So I think he's okay.
You talked just in terms of Kelly Olynyk. What did you see from a playmaking standpoint? Because it kind of looked like he had to make some playmaking decisions to start the game and throughout.
For sure, it was, when the last moment we lost RJ, and that's another creator and a scorer for us. So the ball really went a lot through Kelly, and we were looking to create some of the chemistry there between Kelly and Quickly, and that really started clicking in the second half. And when Quickly, I think in the second half he scored 25 points. In the first half, only 4, and Kelly was a big part of that. Just the way they were working together, angles of screen, playing off of his DHOs. I thought that he did a good job there.
What happened with RJ?
Sickness. Last moment he had. Yes, he was feeling a little bit under the weather, and then just before the game he threw up, and he was not able to start for us tonight.
Ahead of tonight, you talked about Gary being a lot more active without the ball. Were you able to see that tonight in terms of the shots that he was able to create from moving around and kind of getting guys to where he needed them to go?
I thought so. He got 12 threes. I think out of those 12 threes, maybe 1 or 2 were of the dribble. Everything else came in a spacing and playing off of each other. So he continues to improve in that area and finding his looks on the court.
The career high minutes for Grady in a second start. What did you think of his defense?
It had really good moments, and it had the moments that rookie moments of maybe a little bit missed communication or understanding who is he guarding. There is a lot for him to learn, and every single game for him is great, because film that follows and everything that follows is just allowing him to study the game more and to understand the game more. Even like the small stuff, like when they run a double drag and we were switching 1 through 5, he jumped out way too aggressive. That allowed the drive. But when you're switching 1 through 5, you're gonna be more flat, so you can allow the next guy to switch down the line, stuff like that. But as I said, this is amazing for him to start and to play 40 minutes. That's what he can all wish for.
There's a time out there that you're talking to Ochai at the end of the bench. I think maybe trying to help him defensively, kind of figure out where his hands were.
Yes.
Was that was exactly what that conversation was?
Exactly, because a stretch of the game there, we put him to guard Ayton, which is unnatural matchup. But we were just talking about where is his advantage when he plays against the big like that, and where his hands need to be, and how he can come up with deflections and steals. Just know those points.
Boom. Oh, I'm such a pro at this. Okay, I have officially managed to cut out the post interview part with Jalen McDaniels. Success. In a game where Jalen McDaniels actually played and didn't play horribly, but still can't imagine a situation in which I'd be happy if he's a Toronto Raptor next year. Okay. Little reminder to everyone. It is currently 4 a.m. It is not 3 a.m. Move your clocks ahead so that you are not late for your meetings tomorrow. Number 1, clocks move ahead tonight. Number 2, I'll end this live, as I often do, on a bit of a personal story. So pull this up for a second here. So I'm just gonna read this out, because this, was a really big moment for me at Penn Dance. Where is it? Oh, I didn't share it on Penn Dance. Hold on, I shared it on Pinsar Basketball. Me bad. Where is it? Pinsar Films. I shared it on Pinsar Films. Okay, so I hope this stays. Okay, so I'm just going to read this out, and nope, there's absolutely no way for me to hold this. Oh, there is. Pause. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to read this out. It is a story from Penn Dance, but it has something to do with something broader. It has something to do with, overcoming some stuff from childhood. And yeah, I've talked about this teacher very often. I've definitely talked about her at least 2 or 3 times, and it was really meaningful to me to have this happen. Okay, I'm gonna read this out. Once upon a time, I was a really lost 17-year-old. I had skipped 86 math classes in grade 10 and no one noticed. I slept through half the classes I did attend and no one noticed. Do you want to know a secret? I really wanted someone to notice. Most of my teachers saw a bright, bored, and rude kid who didn't care about their classes. The truth is, I was working 40 hours a week and dealing with relentless nonsense at home. Add in complex trauma, depression, and you have a ticking time bomb. I was way more likely at that age to end up dead or in prison than I was to end up in college. In grade 11, I skipped the wrong class a few too many times, and one teacher, my English teacher, did notice. She gave a damn. She gave so much of a damn, she told me she wanted me out of her class. She literally came down to my Spanish class, pulled me out, yelled at me in front of all my classmates and my other teacher, and basically said, I want you to take an ISU, Independent Study Unit. I don't want you in my class anymore. She was running a tribes classroom, which to those of you who are in school and you have tribes classrooms, basically like you are put into a tribe when you are in that class. You have 4 people that you are constantly accountable to. You do a lot of group projects, et cetera, et cetera. It's just a different way of teaching. And it fosters community. And I was not willing to be a part of that community, clearly, because I kept letting down my tribe or my group by just not showing up and I was skipping the classes. So I was unsure what to do, but I asked to stay in the class. I asked to not be kicked out of that class. And I said, please, I'll be better, and I was. I could just sense from her voice that my actions had hurt her and that as upset as she was, that she cared about me and that she cared about the classmates that I was letting down. I was 17 years old. I had a GPA of 1.4. This is a far cry from being tested gifted and getting straight A's in grade 6, grade 7, whatever. I was not college bound, but I wanted to change. The summer going into grade 12, I cut my work hours in half and I wanted to make school a priority. And as I signed up for calculus and physics, I noticed the very same teacher was teaching writer's craft that year. You better believe I signed up. I needed her to know that I had changed. Okay. I remember her being skeptical when she saw me walk into her class, almost like she couldn't believe I was there again. It's a lot of hard work, as if she assumed I might have taken the class accidentally. Here's something she didn't know. I took the class specifically because I wanted her to challenge me. I actually had no interest in being a writer at that time. Would you believe that? I had no interest. I had always been told that writing was a huge, huge weakness for me. Flash forward 12 months. I had a 4.0 GPA. I got a 97 in her class and a scholarship to U of T. Flash forward past a lot of cool stuff, which included being a writer for Bleacher Report, writing 44 scripts, founding a film festival, founding a ton of companies. Just, if I could have told 16-year-old Robert, who was flunking out of those classes, that this would be my life, I would have said, who changed it? Because there's no way in hell I'm ending up here. I got arrested when I was 16. I had so much trouble with my teachers. Like, I was really going down the wrong path. This woman changed my life. So flash forward to Penn Dance 2024. There I was. There was a program called To My Parents, which is a block of 7 shorts, which are about parenthood and overcoming, stuff and taking care of your old parents, becoming a parent, etc. And at the end of it, there is a short called 24/7, which I talked about earlier, that won our best short. And it is about a teacher played by, I believe her name is Manuela Velasco. She's an incredible film, actress, and definitely check her out, if you're Spanish or if you like Spanish stuff. And it's about a teacher who changes a young man's life. And it reminded me very much of how this teacher had changed mine. And so I'm 20 minutes removed from that screening starting. I'm in the lobby doing my general thing as a festival director. I'm just going around greeting everyone's hand, greeting everybody. And 20 minutes before the screening was scheduled, I started speaking with my friend Jeff. Shout outs to Jeff. And I hadn't seen him for years. So it was like hey buddy, how you doing? And he's a very animated, big burly guy. And he's just like all like, giving me daps and introducing me to his guests. And I'm just like, shooting the shit with him or whatever. And then out of the corner of my eye, who do I see? It's my teacher. The woman who changed my life. And there she was at Penn Dance, at the screening that might as well have been devoted to her. I didn't know whether to fall over in tears or do cartwheels. Frankly, I don't even know how to do cartwheels, so I might as well have just cried. I rudely pulled myself away from Jeff. He later told me that I politely excused myself, but whatever. I pulled myself away from him, and I gave her like the biggest hug of my life. Jeff came up to us and he continued the conversation we were having. He started cracking jokes, and I told him, I'm like, this is a teacher who changed my life. And he's like, well, I got bumped for the teacher, no big deal. But he kept being there. And then suddenly, her guest, she brought somebody, she started talking, and then Jeff started talking. And I was just looking at my teacher, and I was just like, I just want to talk to her. I don't want to talk to Jeff. I don't want to talk to her guest. I just want to talk to her. I wish everyone in the whole world would disappear for a minute. And then the volunteer coordinator comes up to me. And then a volunteer came up to me. And then my phone started buzzing off in my pocket. And I'm just like, bro, will this world just shut the fuck up for 1 minute so that I can tell this woman what it means to me that she's here and what she's meant to my life? But no one around me could have known what that moment meant to me. All they saw was me greeting another person, as I had done hundreds of times that weekend. I got to tell you, when I was 16, if the same thing would have happened, I probably would have been very rude to the people who were interrupting me in that moment, because all I could think about would be myself. All I could think about would be the moment that they were interrupting. And I would just be like, excuse me, I was talking to this person. Can you buzz off or whatever? I probably would have said something really rude because I was a very rude kid. And I didn't do that in the moment. Actually, I was very calm. I was very collected. I dealt with the texts. I dealt with the volunteer coordinator. I dealt with Jeff. And I waited. I waited for her to go sit down in the theater. I waited for all the calm and the commotion to settle. And then I found 2-3 minutes to go in afterwards and just talk to her and her guest and just tell her what it meant to me that she was there. And as I was introducing the films and talking about to my parents and why the block exists and what it's about, at the end of it, I did say, I just want to let you all know that this woman who changed my life, as very much this woman changed this kid's life in this film, she's actually in the audience here. I'm not going to shout her out. I'm not going to say her name, but she's here, and it means the world to me. And it did. As a teacher, she taught me about writing and storytelling. 18 years later, I am a writer, primarily, who runs a film festival devoted to storytellers. As a human being, she taught me about empathy and love. And it is the very same empathy and love that I'm able to give towards others. As a friend, which we became friends later on after I graduated from her class, I remained her friend, and she is now retired. She has taught me to believe in myself. And I do. For the first time, truly, I do. And Pendants 2024 meant the world to me. And this is one of the many reasons why I just wanted to share that. And that is a picture of me when I was 16 years old and probably looking very different. Yeah. So I guess I just wanted to say that, we judge people constantly. I'm sure I've judged people. Maybe you've judged me. I think that's pretty normal. To the people who judged me when I was younger, as a troubled kid because of where I came from and how I talked or how I dressed, you saw a person who was failing. Maybe you saw someone who was bound for prison or, bound for poverty or bound for whatever. But the truth is that I was bound for more. And I think a lot of kids are bound for more. I think a lot of kids deserve compassion, empathy, whatever. So I share this story as an inspirational note to you that if you see a child in your life, whether it be your own child, whether it be a neighbor, whether it be a nephew or a niece or whatever, that's falling through the cracks, when you call them out, when you hold them to a higher standard, you might feel like you're being big bad wolf, but you're not. Actually, what you're showing this child is that the standard that they have set for themselves is not sufficient, and that somebody else is willing to hold them to a higher standard. I had a really, really nasty habit of handing in my work very crumpled and very unpolished. I had a very disorganized backpack. I did not care about my schoolwork. I did not put in the extra attention and effort that was required. And I consistently turned in, I don't know, I had a coffee stain or food stain on my paper, and I wouldn't give a shit. That's That was a reflection of how I felt about myself, and it showed in my work. She held me to a higher standard. She was the only adult in my life that held me to a higher standard. And I would thank her for the rest of my life for that. Largely because holding me to a higher standard, even though at the moment it stung and some of the words stung and it probably hurt my feelings and made me feel, angry. What it showed me was that somebody else out there had a bigger dream for me than I had for myself. She told me that one day I hope that I go to Barnes and Nobles or Chapters or whatever, and I see a book by you. And that gave me the vision that maybe the life that I had planned for myself is not the life that I need to live. Because the life I had planned for myself had a lot to do with a lot of shady activities and a lot of, shady people and a lot of, messed up stuff. And there's no judgment to any kid who grew up like me or any kid who's fallen through the cracks. And I've known a lot. And this was a big, big reason why I did a lot of high school lectures after I graduated. I continued to go back, continued to do lectures for, students. And I'm going to continue to do it. As Penn Dance grows, I continue to do film school lectures. And I always want to talk to the youth. I always want to tell kids, that you can be better. You have endless possibilities in terms of the directions you can go. And I feel too often the children are not given that level of support and empathy that they so desperately need. And so whether it be one day my own kids, or whether that be, my sister's kids, or whether that be whoever's kids, or whether that just be kids in general, I always want to, imprint this message that every child deserves understanding and compassion and love, regardless of whether you believe they have earned it, because you never know. You really never know. Because I wouldn't have believed, I don't think anyone in the world would have believed that I would amount to anything when I was 17 years old. And I don't think I would have believed it at all. To the point where I'll end this conversation, because we're now at 2 hours and I realize, kind of pushing it now at 4:20 a.m. A lot of people over the years, as I accomplish various things, I go to university, I graduate university, I get good marks, I get a good job, I buy my house, whatever. At every single stage of my life, various milestones, I shot my first feature, I shot this feature, I shot that, whatever. Every single time people have said, your parents will be so proud. Oh, you started a charity, your parents will be so proud. You started a film festival, your parents will be so proud. You're doing good work in the basketball, stuff. Your parents will be so proud. People have said this to me hundreds of times over the last, 18 years, 17 years. Your parents will be so proud. Every time there has been a voice in my head saying, probably not, But Paul, and some of you guys remember the two brothers, they call in once in a while, F.A. and Paul. And Paul, I think right after Penn Dance, Paul called in and he said, your parents would be, probably looking down on heaven and they'd be very, very proud of you. It's the first time, really, really the first time in my life that I really felt I think they would be. It doesn't even matter if they would be. I am. I'm proud of myself today. That is a big, big step for me, because I got to tell you, at 17, I was not proud of myself. I was a proud individual. I was stubborn as shit, but I wasn't proud of myself. I was prideful, not proud of myself. I am proud of myself today. Continue to do good work, and I got a lot to do. So for Penn Dance 2025, for my work with Players Choice, and of course my growth towards Spencer basketball, and potentially even writing my next book and writing my next feature script. There's a lot of exciting, amazing stuff that I have planned for 2024, 2025, and I hope you all be there for it. So thank you. This community is awesome. 140 people watching this at 4:20 in the morning is very meaningful. Please give this video a like if you liked it. And thanks for joining in. Tough loss for the Raptors. Good win for the Tank. See you guys in Denver. Peace.